everybody. It's Just Bee Stitchin with Pam and Connie. Welcome in. How's everybody doing today? I'm Pam, and this is
Connie with just another stitch.
Whew. Well, I played that little intro video. I didn't even know it existed till a few minutes ago. So that way it can hopefully give y'all a chance to get out of the ads, which should be playing and hopefully are ending so y'all can come on in. Woohoo, we got one little eyeball. So today, y'all, we're going to be talking about patterns and designing your own. And I'm going to turn my camera down just a little bit. Hey, Doretha, welcome in.
Hello.
Hey, Melanie.
Howdy.
Y'all, I am at work, so I have a different setup. So I'm trying to get everything situated, but I'll get my face above the banner there.
Okay, you said that Butterwell Boutique is Demetria?
Doretha.
Dorisa.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. I'm not familiar with her.
Gotcha. Hi, Jan. Welcome in. Welcome in. So, chat, have any of y'all ever designed your own item? Let us know. Usually when I design, I'm designing for me, for my body, or for somebody that I know, as far as wearables. But I've designed quite a few blankets that I just kind of make up on the fly, which is kind of how this shirt came about as well. Some of y'all helped me create this on a live one night, picking out the pattern or picking out the stitches. Sweet. Doretha said she has.
Yeah, I tend to do more, like I've done a lot of beanies when I design patterns.
See, and a lot of times with my beanies, I just kind of wing it. So I guess technically I've designed a lot of beanies, but I haven't put them out there for everybody else to make. But I do have a few tutorials on my channel. So
And I have two scores. Another one that I need to make a couple of changes on it basically and then get it written up. And I'm working on a top design right now.
nice. Let's see, Jen says yes, but they don't normally fit like she sees in her mind. I understand because that's kind of how this did. Hey Kelly, welcome in. That's kind of how this did. This shirt took a lot of frogging. This is the shirt that I made for the Bag O' Day challenge that she's got going on right now, using one of her stitches. So, but I'm going to let Connie take it over. She prepared. Hi, Anita. Welcome in. Connie had prepared this live when she fell under the weather. Hey, Chris. So we didn't have time to finish it last time, so I'm going to let her finish up with what she had started. And so I'm going to be popping up y'all's links or popping up your comments and answering questions. And yeah, so take it away, Connie.
Okay, so one thing that's important is learning how to read and write crochet patterns. Because in order to write up a pattern, you got to know how to be able to read one. So, Pam, if you could pull up that link for the pattern.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to go over the different parts to a pattern. Okay. Usually, like at the top, you'll see the title, who it's designed by, type thing, a picture, and then you want to put the skill level. And this one here is an adventurous beginner. And then you want to list the materials. And they tell you what type of yarn, how much, what weight, the size hook you need, and things like scissors, needle to sew in ends, as some of the other things that you'll need. And And this one gives you the size. And then you also need to list the gauge or gauge.
Mhm.
I always say it wrong. Um,
And gauge is very important if you're making wearables because not everybody crochets the same. So doing the gauge swatch will let those that are trying to remake your pattern know if their gauge matches yours. Like they may need to change their hook size in order for the sizing to come out the same as yours. So just keep that in mind.
exactly, because on like some patterns, like a scarf or even like a shawl, the size typically doesn't matter. But if you're making something like a top, sweater,
Hmm. Or even a specific size blanket. If you want it to be, unless like me, I usually just chain until it fits across the bed or whatever I'm making it for. So very super technical.
and then you'll see the stitches and abbreviations. And basically, patterns are written up using a lot of abbreviations. But usually, you can tell, like SS is slip stitch,
Right.
ST, or they'll add the S if it's plural for stitches, SP for space. This one
Mhm.
has does the magic ring, so MR.
MR might would have thrown me off, but I usually do the magic ring anyway. But that one might would have taken me some time. But yeah, that's just to put your initials for your abbreviations for the stitches you're using in your pattern.
And like DC is for double crochet, TR is for treble crochet, front post double crochet, FPDC, front post treble crochet, FPTR. And you see, and sometimes you'll see explanations of the stitches in a pattern too.
And that's
And
good
then,
too, like especially if like you're making like a cluster, because a lot of people, I won't say everybody, a lot of people do clusters different. It might be like a 5 double crochet cluster, or it might be a 3 double crochet cluster. So looking at that section will let you know what the special stitch is for this particular pattern. And we got Miss Anita joining us and Mama Riz. Hey, hey, hey.
howdy, howdy, everyone.
I'm on my lunch break too, y'all.
Howdy, howdy, yeehaw!
Yep.
All right. Then pattern notes is something you'll see in patterns. And this section is very important. And you always want to read over like the pattern before you get started. For those of y'all that don't know how to read a pattern. And like here it says this is written in US terms with UK terms listed in stitches used. This pattern can be made in any weight yarn. Since this is a shawl and not a blanket, it is recommended to use a hook 1 to 2 sizes bigger than recommended to create a nice drape in the finished fabric. And this is a reversible pattern. There is no right or wrong side of the pattern. The top edge will curve. This is a design element. Chain 3 at the beginning of rows counts as a double crochet. And normally, like whether or not that chain 3 counts as a double crochet, is usually listed in the notes.
And Connie, is this a free pattern that you found?
Yes, it's
Okay.
called it's called the Alaskan Waffle Shawl, and I found it on Ravelry.
Okay, and since it is a free pattern, y'all, after this, I will, after this live ends, probably when I get home from work today, I will make sure that the pattern for this that she's showing here, I will leave a link in the description box so that if y'all want to go download this pattern, you can. Let's see. Hey, Dawn, welcome in. Maria says, where's my colorful blanket? It is at home. I am actually at work, so I brought background and I almost brought that with me. And then I thought, no, because I don't want to forget it here. I mean, I'm here every day, but anyway. But so I did bring an honorary tiny. That's my yarn bowl. So instead of tiny running around, you get the yarn bowl.
Oh, you saw that video I sent you last night about the cat?
That was so cute.
They redid the theme song for Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to do with cats, and this video was so cute. I shared it on my personal Facebook page. Oh, all right. So basically, always go over the pattern notes. And when you write a pattern, like I said, you're going to make notes.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, one thing that I'm going to toss out there, if y'all can't read a pattern, if you get, say, like a Bag O' Day pattern where she also has a tutorial, or like this particular pattern, I don't know. Oh, yeah, right here. Right there where it says a video tutorial can be found here. So for this specific pattern, you can actually go watch a video tutorial. So you've got the written pattern, and then you can see what she's doing. So that'll help you learn how to read a pattern because you've got somebody actually physically telling you what each step means. So that just kind of helps because you've got it written and then also the video to go along with it.
Yep, that's how I learned to read patterns. And I know Morley Bird is good for doing that. I think the Crochet Crowd.
Yeah, because they do a lot of the, especially, Mikey and Marley and Jonah, they do a lot of the Yarnspiration patterns. So a lot of those you can find free on Yarnspiration's website, or Mikey at Crochet Crowd has a lot of his patterns on his own on his own website. So you can look at the pattern and then also watch the tutorial.
And then you start getting, to the pattern instructions. And basically make a magic ring or chain 4. Slip stitch the first chain to form a ring. Chain 3 counts as double crochet here and throughout. Then you do 2 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets into the ring turn. And it just keeps going on with the pattern.
Yeah. I'm going to stop my camera for just a second. Y'all keep going.
You see, here's the instructions for the edging. And basically, like I said, you just got to fill in what the abbreviation stands for to read it. But reading patterns really is not that hard. And that's pretty much the basics to reading a pattern. So have y'all ever wrote a pattern before? Like wrote one up?
I was looking through that when we asked that earlier. Doretha said she's never actually written up a formal pattern. Most of my pattern, well, I won't say most, all of the patterns that I have made on my own, I've written them in notebooks, but I've not actually published one, but I have done a tutorial. But I don't have anything written up. But I know, Connie, you do, because you have them in your Ravelry. Is it Ravelry that you've got? Or Etsy?
Yeah.
Ravelry store. So.
But yeah. So that's pretty much the basics for that. And the next thing is to experiment.
Absolutely.
You learn a lot from experimenting. You can try different hook sizes with various yarn weights. Another thing too, you can combine a 4-weight yarn with a thread yarn. That's really pretty.
Yeah, and like a lot of those specialty thread, like if you get them, are the ones that have the little sequins on them. It's like with a thread and then there'll be a sequence. Yeah, mix those in with like a Red Heart Super Saver. You can give it some bling super easy by holding those together. Now let me back up. Mama Riz said she does not read patterns, but she thinks she's learning. She's almost finished with a tote for her niece, and she made it with no tutorial, and she thinks she's getting it. So that is awesome. And then Dawn said yes, that's helpful for her when she's something she hasn't done before. Talking about having the printed pattern as well as the tutorial.
Yes. And like whenever I learned to crochet, I learned from Selena Bacchus lessons on Craftsy, but basically the pattern she had you do, there was a video tutorial, and you know, and that's one thing too with crochet and even knitting. Don't be afraid to jump in, try new things.
Exactly.
That's how you learn.
And I bring it, that's Kelly. Mama Maria's I'll answer for. I bring it is Kelly. And she said she is a visual learner. Her grandmother only spoke Spanish, so she learned by watching her. No language needed for crochet. Absolutely. And if you are a visual learner, a lot of people do have the tutorials.
Mm-hmm. Lots of good tutorials out there.
Dawn was answering. She said, nope, she has not written a pattern. She's still learning a lot. And Anita said she recently wrote her first, but it's not released yet. Testers aren't done. But yay, congratulations. Way to
go, Anita.
Let's see. Elizabeth says, I love your top. Did you make it? I forgot to look on your last slide for the link to the white open top you were wearing. I think it was bought. Yes, and I did put that in there. I almost forgot, but as soon as we got off the live, I was reminded, and I had already forgotten. So Margie did remind me, and I did go post that. But this top I did make. This is the one that I have been working on for the bod challenge. I'll stand up and show y'all what it looks like. So there's the band. Hold on, gotta take the camera off. And then there's the bottom. My little skirt. Or, well, it's not really a skirt. It ends. I do have pictures. So I will get those posted.
All right.
And we are at the All right, carry on, Miss Connie.
Another thing, too, try different colors when you're experimenting. There's some beautiful color combinations. Then you can hold multiple strands of yarn. That's another thing you can do. And go
like she was saying with the color, y'all, changing the color can totally change the effect of the thing. Wow, I didn't get my camera back, y'all. Hold up.
It really does.
Because
you can make the same pattern, but in different colors, and it looks completely different.
Absolutely. And especially, too, like if you're using a variegated versus a solid, it can also change it. Like a variegated, if you're using a very detailed stitch, you can sometimes completely lose the stitch definition. So.
And, just go, if you have a stitch dictionary, just go through it and combine a bunch of stitches. Make a bunch of swatches.
Absolutely. And I think we hit on that on our last live. Yeah, don't be afraid to combine stitches and even if I know I had said it, I don't worry about the stitch count. Like I don't make sure that it's the same, but I'm also kind of math minded when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I can tweak it and make it work. But if you're not, then just look at all your stitches. If they all say multiple of 4 or multiple of 6, take all of your multiple of 6 stitches, and then you can keep those together so you don't have to recalculate your stitches that you need for that particular project.
And also there's so many stitch tutorials on YouTube.
Absolutely.
You could Google stitches. I mean, there are some beautiful, beautiful stitches. The next thing, well, first I want to ask, how many of y'all hate to frog?
How many what?
Hate to frog.
I'm not a big fan of frogging.
But when you're designing, you got to welcome the frogging.
This shirt was frogged a lot. For those that have been following the make of it on my lives, y'all know I frogged this bad boy a lot. several times. I've made and remade this shirt several times.
Because some things you try won't work.
Mm-hmm.
Other things are like, oh, that's it, you know. So
Yep.
yeah, love on the frogging. Frog, we love you.
Right? Yeah, don't be afraid to frog because it's going to happen. You're going to have to frog it.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn says she frogs as much as she makes. And Chris says frogging is your friend. Yep,
Frogging is a learning experience when you're designing.
absolutely. And Mama
And the
Riz
thing
says she's never made a wearable yet. I have only well, I say recently, probably within the last 8 years, have started making wearables for people, not myself. Like, well, I've made hats and scarves, but I mean actual like clothing, like shirts or ponchos or anything like that.
the funny thing is, I had never made a wearable before because I was always like, I don't want to make a wearable the current size I am. And now that I'm starting to lose weight, I made my first wearable for well, it's for a Bob's challenge and my weight loss make along. But the funny thing is, like I said, I never made one. I just went straight to trying to design one.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
But
one way. Just jump in and do.
hmm and the thing is that yeah, the for the most part, it's basic form. It's nothing fancy.
Mm-hmm.
But like I used the feather stitch and the crossed puff stitch and made it with some fun colors. Hi,
Hey, Renee.
Renee.
And Chris is
All
saying,
right.
"Go for it, Mama Riz."
So I'm curious. I want to know about y'all frogging experiences when you
Mm-hmm.
design patterns for those of y'all that design.
I frog a lot, a lot, a lot. Yep.
Yeah, because I think on that score, that one that's in the shades of pink that I
Mm-hmm.
was designing, it took me a while to find stitches that I thought look, work together and look
Right.
good together. But like I said, you just gotta play, play, play.
And Elizabeth said her husband teases her that she's always taking her crochet apart.
And that's like on the top I'm designing. I had written down in my notes, like I had put cast on, and I had played with one number, and it was too big, so I cut it back. I kind of looked at other patterns to see like what they cast it on,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I got to the second panel, well, I didn't scratch out what I had initially was trying to play with.
Uh-huh.
And like the real cast on was at the bottom doing some math, but I didn't label it clearly.
Right. See,
And
and I'm bad about that. I am bad, y'all. I didn't bring my notebook, but I'm bad to have my whole thing scribbled out on a sheet of notebook paper or in one of these little in my spirals. And I may have it down here, and then I'll have like 6 or 7 rows written, and then I'll decide I don't like row 2. So I'll go and I'll cross it out, and then I'll have an arrow, and then row 2 will be down here. So then when I make it the next time, it's like I have to go find, and then there'll be notes up the sides. It's a hot mess. And what I need to do is after I get it finished, I need to go type it up, rewrite it, something. And sometimes I do, but most of the time I'm like, oh, I'll remember. I don't remember. I don't
exactly.
remember.
And even
Need
though
to
you
do it again.
technically made a note of it,
Yeah.
but
But it's just making a note to remind yourself to look at the bottom. Lots of arrows and yeah.
and basically when I got to the second panel for my top, I cast it on too much. And I had worked on that second panel like an entire day's work. And I kept thinking that it seemed like it was taking me longer to do the rose. And then I kind of like put it, like that. And I was like, gee, it looks big. And then I compared it to the other panel, and it's like, yep, it is too big. So I had to count my initial to figure out what my cast on was. And that's whenever afterwards I saw where it was written in my notes.
Yep.
And for all of that.
And y'all, don't forget to write down what hook you're using. That's my other thing that I tend to do. I'm like, oh, well, this is my favorite hook. I won't forget what hook I was using. Well, that might be the favorite hook for right then, because, a year from now, that may not be my favorite hook anymore. I may have moved on to a new favorite hook. So be sure to write what hook you're using, what hook size, or even if it's a different hook brand. Like most of them I have the same crochet tension with, but there are certain newer hooks that I've bought that my tension is different. So I try to write down which size hook I'm using and which brand, because I won't remember. I say I'm going to remember, but then, like I said, my favorite hook my favorite hook from 2 years ago is not the same favorite hook that I have today. So,
yeah.
That's okay, Angel Renee. She said she's not engaging much, but she is totally listening, and that is cool. We appreciate that.
But yeah, and with that top though, I got about half, like I sewed one side of the panel together. I'm about the halfway, maybe a little less on the other side. And then after that, I just gotta crochet up the straps, sew them on, and I want to add fringe to the bottom.
That'll be cute. Doretha said, it's good to know that these are normal designer behaviors. I thought I was just bad at it. Nope, not bad. I thought I was the only one too. And then as I've gotten more involved in the YouTube community, I've learned that I am not alone. It is just, everybody does things a little different. Everybody designs different. But then I found that there are just certain things that we all do the same.
Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, one thing I've learned, usually whenever, how sometimes you feel like you're the only one that feels a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But you start to realize if you talk to other people, usually those feelings you have, others feel them too.
Exactly.
So
And
you're
Anita
not
said she
alone.
always forgets to write her hook size down. I am so bad with it. And then let me back up here. Chris wants to know if either of us have found a good pattern to write with, or a good program to write with. I've heard different ones talk about crochet programs. I have not yet checked any of them out. I usually just make up my own stuff and write it down in a notebook and then just type it up. If I put it into my computer, I just type it up in Word and then save it on my computer for myself. So I have not personally checked them out, so I don't want to recommend any because I haven't personally checked them out yet. How about you, Connie? Have you?
I haven't. I basically do the same thing, but mine isn't actually Microsoft Word. It's a Microsoft Word like program.
Elizabeth says she does need to write down her hook, but she tries to finish every start, even if I don't like it. I can't have UFOs that keep me awake at night. Some boss teases her that I always get everything done. Hey, that's awesome because I have got bunches of UFOs. I've got whips and I have UFOs. And my difference is my whips are what I'm currently working on. My UFOs are things that I started a long time ago, and I have no clue when I started them. I have no clue what hook size I was using. Sometimes I don't even remember what pattern it is. So then they do usually get finished. It just may not be with the original intent. Hey, Rudy, welcome in.
Howdy, howdy.
Mama Riz says she just can't push things off for another day. You're not a weirdo. There are people that are like that. You are, and you're not alone. I have met people in the YouTube community that work on one project at a time. I work on like multiple projects at a time because I get bored with one, so I go back to another one. And then like I have smaller projects that I know I can finish within. Like if I'm bored with working on a big project, I have some smaller things that I know I can whip out, like maybe a washcloth or a dishcloth or a dish scrubby or just something I can whip out super quick, a face scrubby, something that I can get done and get it out.
I think that's the one I use, Anita.
WPS Office. I haven't tried that either, I don't think.
But it's basically like Microsoft Word.
Is it a free one or do you have to pay for it?
Free.
Oh, maybe I need to try that then. So I don't have to pay for the Word and Excel. Aw. Marissa said she set down a blanket she was making while taking care of her mom when she was on hospice, and I just couldn't pick it up. And sometimes I have projects like that as well. But she finally finished it, and she's so thankful she did. Yes, congratulations for finishing it. I do have projects like that. It's like where you're making it, and then when you pick it back up, you have memories of what was going on in your life at the time you were making it, and you just. So I'm so happy you were able to finish that.
Go, Elizabeth. Go, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
All right, the next thing is to stick to your style. Your style is what makes you unique. You know,
Yeah.
one thing I like, and I really want to find some patterns for, like the tops where like the sleeves flare out.
See, and that's what this one was supposed to do. I was going to take it down to here, and then I was going to repeat the pineapple so that it had like so that it trumpeted out. But I ran out of yarn, and y'all, it wasn't like a planning error. It was that I picked out this yarn because initially I wasn't going to do that, and I thought I would have enough yarn, and I bought this yarn on clearance, and it is no more available. So that's why it has the green in it. So I thought I would have enough to be able to finish it. But I am going to make this shirt again in a different yarn. And so the next one I'm going to do with the trumpet sleeves. That's my plan because I want to get it from here out to here.
So that's what it's called, trumpet sleeves.
That's what, well, yeah, because it comes down and then it flares out like a trumpet. I don't know that that's the official word. That's what I've always heard it called in trumpet skirts and stuff where they flare out like that. I don't know if that's the official word, but that's what I use.
Because I don't know what to search to find it.
I don't know. Or they flare out. You're talking about the ones that are like fitted and then they floof out?
Yeah.
So let's see. Anita says, I think you're only allowed so many corrections on the free version. Is that right, Connie? On the WPS Office?
Not that I know of. Let me see what I have.
Okay. Hey, Lori, welcome in. She said she is listening while doing data management at work. She's the only one here, so we are keeping her company. She doesn't like to be alone in the old building. I am at work too, y'all. It is my lunch break. So I'm upstairs in an empty office. So I did tell one of the guys that's up here, I'm like, hey, if you hear talking, it's me. I'm not talking to myself, I promise.
Okay, it's open office.
Open office? Okay. Jeanne says she does that. She works on one large or timely project, and then she'll do a small one to break it up. And you're so very welcome. Everybody's saying hi to Lori. And then Mama is saying to Jeanne, that's a good idea. Bell sleeves, that could be the other name for it. Krista said sometimes they're called bell sleeves.
But I still don't know if it would pull it up, though.
Yeah, probably not. Just depends on how it's worded and how they label it, you know. You know, like cute shirt with trumpet sleeves or cute shirt with bell sleeve. You know, I guess it would have to be, yep. Hey, Pamela, welcome in. Wicked Grady.
But there's so many top patterns, so it's kind of like you gotta search and search and search before you might find one.
Exactly, exactly. Elizabeth says, is it weird that she is making a granny square tote but joining with a single crochet on the outside? Am I supposed to join under? I don't know. No, that you can do it either way. Sometimes I will join my granny squares with a single crochet on the outside for design element, to give it some texture, to give it something to make it pop out, just to make it a little, just for a design element. So you can do it either way. Joining on it with a single crochet on the outside, totally fine.
All right, moving on. Oh, I see we have Tina.
Hey, Tina.
All right, so the next thing would be practicing designing a pattern you already know. Like, for instance, granny squares
Mm-hmm.
would be a good thing to. Granny, you know what's funny? I still never actually made a granny square.
Really?
The closest was those peppermint things for that peppermint blanket that's
Mm-hmm.
been a whip for quite some
That
time.
is a very challenging pattern.
I got bored. That was my biggest problem.
The thing with making patterns with all the motifs like that, I do get bored because, and once I get them all made, I don't want to sew them all together. I like the join as you go kind of things, but yeah. And I think that maybe like some of us that were taught to crochet when we were younger, granny square, chevron, those type of things were what our parents or our grandparents or maid, a great aunts, uncle, whoever the crocheter was in your family. And so that's the stuff we learned how to do first. So, but with YouTube, there's so many other options. You don't have to start out with a traditional granny square. So I guess that's why, because you are self-taught crochet as an adult and you weren't taught as a child by a grandmother or a great grandmother. So maybe that's why. But you could do it. You could totally do it.
See, what's bad is I got burnt out on blankets.
Mm-hmm.
And but if I did like granny squares, I'd probably do like something fancy.
Well, see, you could start. I tell you, I love Craig over the Fiber Spider. He has got
He's
a
good.
kaleidoscope granny, so you can each section it kind of grows and it twists, so it gives the kaleidoscope effect. You'll have to check it out. It's really cool. But
Cat granny squares.
so you could do, but with the granny square too, you didn't have to make a bunch of granny squares and then stitch them together. You could just take your granny square and just grow it and grow it and grow it as big as you want. And then when you get it to the size of a lap throw, then you're done. You don't have to, cut and rejoin and then sew them all together if you don't want to.
Okay, this we basically already went over. Learn about gauge
Mm-hmm.
and how gauge is important when size matters in a pattern. Like a
Absolutely.
top, you gotta do a gauge check.
Yeah.
And sometimes even with hats, but normally like mine always come out.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first hat I made following a pattern I was making for my son's friend who was in high school at the time. And as I'm making it, and I was like, okay, well, it says to use this size hook, this size yarn, and I'm making it. I'm like, there's no way. And I'm like, well, maybe it's going to stretch. So I just kept going thinking, yeah, it fit my niece, who at the time was about a year old or younger. And it fit her. It did not fit a high school kid's head. So I was like, I crochet tight. That's the first time it finally ding, ding, ding. Because I had made shawls and stuff and I had made hats, but I'd never followed a tutorial or followed a pattern to make the hat. And he wanted like an ear flap hat and I'd never made one. So I followed a pattern. And yeah, it was the mess.
Because usually, like, if I use a 5 millimeter hook, I know to cast on so many for 4 weight yarn. And then the same if I'm using like a 5.5.
Okay, I'm gonna put y'all. My son's trying to pick up his car, and they're just now letting him know that it's ready. So I'm gonna turn my camera off again. I'm still here. I'm still listening. I'll still be clicking on stuff, but I've got to make sure his car is ready. Give me just a second here. Y'all keep going. And before I do that, though, Doretha said she's learned from YouTube videos, but she's now learning to read patterns. Awesome.
Awesome sauce.
Marissa says she is not good at sewing appliques on. I just don't. That's just not my thing that I enjoy doing. But she said the tote has 12 mushrooms on it. It's like a hippie bag. My sewing is awful. Even sewing in the tails, I always say till the end. Yep, me too. Me too. But
Oh,
yeah.
that ocean blanket I made.
Mm-hmm. So
All the sewing.
happened to sew after I'm done. Just to me, that takes for me, it takes as long as the whole entire project, it seems like. Yep. Everybody's saying that's awesome. Aw, thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, Joy, welcome in.
Howdy, howdy.
All right, carry on, Miss Connie.
All right. Another important thing is to get your patterns tested. That way they can check, sometimes to see if you need to explain something better, or maybe you made a boo-boo when it comes to your pattern. So testers is very important. And you can also use a tech editor. But that the tech editors, cost money. But basically, a tech editor will show you like the proper universal way to write up a pattern.
Now, when you say tech editor, is that an actual person that you're getting to edit it, or is there a program that is a tech editor that you're using?
I think basically people get like certified as a tech editor. I know AJ with AJ's Personal Touch is a tech editor.
Okay.
But you see, like she did it for free for me. But like I said, typically you tend to have to pay, and you kind of got to decide too if it's worth it or not. I see we have Kim. Howdy.
Y'all, I'm waving. I ain't even got my camera on. Hold up. I just have to be sitting here texting him while I was doing that. So, yeah.
And another thing which is very important, don't stop crocheting other designers' patterns. Because
Exactly.
your Crojo and Knitting Mojo is important. And you also learn a lot from working on others' designs.
Absolutely. And I've learned a lot doing blankets that I never would have thought. There was a time when I would look at a blanket and be like, I can't make that. There's no way. And then I learned how to read patterns. And then I'm like, well, maybe I can make it. And then once YouTube came around, I'm like, well, that's so much easier than I thought it was going to be. So don't be afraid to try like the Sophie's Universe or the Faith Crochet Alongs or the All in the Families or any of the big crochet along blankets that you see. Don't be afraid to try them because you will learn so much from them, and they may show you a different way to do a stitch that you've been doing for years that you can do differently and get the same effect that you may like better than the way you were taught or the way that you've been doing it.
And really, if you know how to chain, single crochet, double crochet, triple crochet, you really can make anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how you combine the stitches.
Right. Mama Riz said she will never write or pattern or do a YouTube channel. She crochets as a hobby and to relax. Hey, and that is perfectly fine too. And you say never, but you never know. There may come a day where you like just decide, hey, you know what? Today is the day I'm going to do it. We're absolutely not going to pressure anybody to do something they don't want to do. And we appreciate everybody that likes to crochet as a hobby and to relax. That's what I like to do as well. but I've also started kind of venturing out. But it's not for everybody. And Kim said she knows a lady who is. They are certified and they do more than a pattern tester does. Sample knit and crochet and test knit and crochet, but she's not a certified tech editor. I gotcha. And Kim said most designers get all three things done with each pattern. See, and I've never sent my patterns out. I haven't sent them to a tester. I haven't printed or published any of my patterns yet. So that is something that when I get to that point, I will need to look into that. So that's good info to know. And how, for those of y'all that have, like Connie and Kim and anybody else in the chat, when you went to look for testers, how did you find testers? Did you just put it out there and say, hey, I'm looking for testers? Or did you take referrals to get somebody to test it? How did y'all go about doing that?
Usually I just put it out there that I'm looking for testers. But a lot of times whenever I go to work on a design, I have people automatically, I want to test it for you. And some are ones that have tested for me quite a few times too.
Okay.
It just kind of depends because sometimes people are busy and with what they have going on.
Right. Elizabeth said her hubby said all you did was crochet this weekend and thinks I'm lazy. I'm like, the house is clean, the laundry's done. I'm enjoying my days off being creative. He's like, well, what about dinner? And she said, order pizza. Absolutely. I agree. My thing is, I can't say that my house is clean or my laundry is done. I'm usually more all about the crochet. But I live by myself, so it's all good. Yep, never say never. Exactly. Kim says currently her internet is working, but they're still working on it, so she may get cut off any minute. Understand? Well, we are glad you're here as long as you do. Lori said something she underestimated until she learned is the anatomy of the stitches. Mm-hmm. Yep. Agree. Kim said she has some patterns that she is hoping to get all the things done this fall. Sweet. Jan said she would have said the kitchen is in the same place it was yesterday, so what are you making? But that could be one of the reasons I'm single at 63. Let's see. Kim said she is a tester and she treats it as a resume. I've tested for some big companies and designers, but you have to be careful because people will steal your designs. Oh, yeah, that's true. That would stink. I guess you have to make sure the people that you are getting to test are honest and won't do that. I guess you have to know who your testers are. That's a good thing to keep in mind. Hi, Lydia. She says hi, ladies, and in the chat. Lori said, and what exactly did the hubby accomplish? And she said, he watches TV. Kim said sometimes she's had to sign a waiver, which is why she is such an advocate for copyright and proper procedures. Oh, good idea. Yep. Yep.
So I went over everything on my list.
Okay. I got another text from my kiddo. Give me just a second here. Okay, he just said okay. He just liked it. I sent him back and said okay. Let's see. Kim says the majority of her test she is done. She's been approached by the designer and yarn company, etc. She was approached by 2 companies for salary, paying sample, knitting gig even. Oh, wow. That would be cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. The only thing about that, like if you're sampling, I guess if you're testing for somebody, do you get to see what you're testing first? Whereas if they give you a salary to test it, you do you have a choice but to make the product? She said she turned them both down. That would be my only That would be my only concern. I want it to stay fun. So it's one thing if I'm getting paid to test a pattern that I really like the looks of and want to test. But if I'm on their salary and they're sending it to me, then I have to make it, would be my guess. Hey, Granny D.
Howdy,
Welcome
Granny D. I sent you an email today, Granny D.
Lori says, my lazy activities produce something that I can gift or sell. She said, but her husband's hobbies, watching sports, never produces anything but snack crumbs. Yeah. All right, y'all, we've got about 5 minutes before my lunch break is over. So is there anything y'all want to add?
Yeah, maybe y'all have some other good designer tips.
Mm-hmm. Kim said, because it's a full-time job and you have deadlines and you're under a contract and can be sued if you do not hold up that part of the deal. Okay, see, that's what I was wondering. So absolutely. And Kim said, yes, you are to make what they send regardless if you want to or not. I do not blame you for turning them down. I would probably have done the same thing because that adds stress. It makes it no longer fun to me.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if I'm under a deadline. Like if I'm on a deadline for something that I'm making, that's a deadline I put on myself. It's not a deadline that, yeah. So yeah, I completely understand that.
That's where I'm not big on like making something for someone else, like
Mm-hmm.
when they're paying you,
Yeah.
because I find it's not fun.
Right. See, I like to make what I like to make when I want to make it. And sometimes I'll make something as a challenge to myself, and then I'll get people saying, ooh, I like that. Can you make me one? Sometimes it's like, okay. But then other times I'm like, especially like with the pocket shawl, I made one. And then I had to make 10. And after the 10th one, I'm like, I don't want to make this ever again. But then like a year or two later, I did make another one. But I like to mix it up. I like to change it up. I like to do different things. I don't always like to make the same thing over and over again. So.
Yeah, I tend to like doing different patterns.
Mm-hmm. Kim said, as far as designs, I think it's important to focus on projects that utilize yarn that can be easily swapped out. You may have some cool art yarn, but others may not. Exactly. And I do try to do that as well. Or in my own personal self. Like if I see a pattern, I don't necessarily use the yarn that the designer has suggested. I use what I like.
Me
So if I'm
too.
making a blanket, I use colors that I like that are going to fit my style and my decor. And it may not be what the designer has chosen. But that's a good thing to keep in mind. Absolutely.
And one thing too on Ravelry, when you see a pattern, if you go to the projects tab, you can see like other people that have made it and submitted pictures where you get ideas like what colors they use or what, different yarns they used.
Mm-hmm. And Kim's saying that's also why she doesn't do commission and doesn't sell anything because she has so many things that she wants to make and she doesn't want to do duplicates unless it's knockers or something for a donation. Exactly. And that's part of the problem I'm running into doing craft shows. I guess that's really where I found out that I don't particularly enjoy making the same thing over and over and over again because, you have to have several of one item to sell at the craft shows. And my first couple of craft shows, I had a whole lot of a lot. Like I had like 2 or 3 different blankets and I had 5 or 6 different loveys. And I didn't have a lot of anything that was the same. I had a lot of a bunch of different things. So I've had to kind of try to narrow that down. But then that kind of gets into I don't like making the same thing over and over again. So, yep. Kim said she also thinks it's important to use neutral colors as you want to reach a broader audience. They can have color, just be mindful. Right. Yeah. If you're doing the design it for to sell, I agree. Or at least have it. And I think that's good too when you get your testers. If they do it in different color palettes, you can show all of the different ways the same project can be made in the different colors to let people know the versatility of how it's going to be. So,
Yeah, because like when I have people test mine, they use whatever yarn they want.
mhm.
Basically, as long as it's the same yarn weight.
Mhm.
I've had it where some people will use scrap yarn.
Yeah. Good tips, y'all. All right. Well, thanks y'all so very much for coming and hanging out with us. I greatly appreciate it. I've got to get back to work. Hey, Niecy.
Howdy,
She said, yep.
Nisi.
She just came in from finishing ranch tours. I am just getting ready to head back to work. We were just finishing up, but thank y'all again for coming and hanging out with us for this hour. We appreciate it. And you can catch us next month over on Connie's channel. Oh, let me catch this right here. Nisi said she'll catch the replay. Absolutely. Thanks so much. Kim says, as far as testers, set clear expectations, express gauge, express timelines, how the finished photos are, and if they can show it or not in process. That is something very important to keep in mind. Absolutely. Because if you don't want one of your testers to show it on their channel or on their social media before you're ready for it to be out there. So very good. Yes, let your testers know from the beginning, do not show this, or it's okay to show it. Yeah, so
I
be sure
let
to let them
mine.
know. You do?
Yeah, as long as they want to share their progress, that's fine with me. Just don't share the pattern.
Right. And be sure to let your testers know if you do give them the okay to do that, that they credit back, hey, I'm testing a pattern for this specific designer. Like I'm testing this for Connie at Just Another Stitch. That,
They always have. Usually most people, whenever they show progress of a test design on their channels, they
mm-hmm.
usually will refer.
Good deal. Yep. All right. Everybody's saying that they've enjoyed it. Well, thanks, y'all. We appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
We hope we gave y'all some good pointers, and I know I got some from y'all as well. So thank you so very much. And Wicked Granny Pamela, she says she enjoyed it and learned some new things. So awesome. All right,
Awesome.
y'all. Have a fabulous, fabulous day, and I will see y'all around the YouTube streets.
Bye.
Bye.
Be the light.